Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with another Pandat face palette update. So it's been another month where I've been working on my Hourglass Ambient Edit Ghost palette. So I'm going to share with you how I'm doing with this palette now. I'm really happy with the progress this month. I'm not sure how well you're going to see the difference in the progress pictures, but I can definitely start to see a difference in person. And I also feel like the weight's gone down. I know the weight has gone down quite a bit. So I'm really excited to share with you what the palette looks like today. But before I jump into that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So I'm going to roll the footage of what the palette has been looking like since the introduction. From the start, just because I have quite a bit of footage now since we're getting towards the end of the year, or well, we are in the second half of the year. So yeah, you can see that it has looking like at the introduction it wasn't really that much used, but I continuously used it over the past couple of months. I initially focused a lot on the second shade and the fifth shade, so the two shades in the middle. I focused on those two quite a bit in the beginning. And those were kind of like my blush combination for the beginning of the year. On top of that, I also reached for the highlight a couple of times and the bronzer, and I've just dipped into the palette, but those two were the main things that I focused on. But I got to a point around, I think, May time, where I switched my focus over to the next blush. So, again, you're going to be able to see hopefully some of the progress while I'm talking about it. And also to mention, before I switched over, I actually hit pan on that second shade quite a bit. I haven't used it in a while, but I pan on it around, again, the May point, I believe. And yeah, this is what the palette looked like last month. So you can see where I was with it then. I have been focusing quite a lot on, again, the last blush and then the first shade in the palette. So the first and the last shade in the palette I've been focusing quite a bit on, as well as the highlighter a little bit, as well as the bronzer. And this is what the palette looks like today. So again, I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to see a difference. I'm hoping you can see some of a difference. I can definitely in person see quite a bit of a dip now, especially in that sixth shade, the blush as well as the bronzer. Those two are getting very flat. And again, I think I've definitely flattened out the dome of the highlighter as well as the first shade in the palette too. So yes, that is what the palette is today. And again, I will have pictures up here so you can see the difference. But just to give you another overview, this is what the palette looks like. So the shades that I've been focusing mainly on is this shade here and this one. I mixed those two quite a bit as a blush. And then I used the highlighter. I've kind of flattened that out, I believe. It's still probably the most unused product. But last month it was definitely more domed, and I feel like I've definitely flattened that out. And then the bronzer as well. I've been focusing on these two shades I haven't actually used. But I'm going to talk you through all of my uses. So the first shade in the palette is called Dim Light, and this is again just finishing powder, and I use this one kind of a bit to tone down some of the blushes. So that's what I use this finishing palette for. I kind of used to use it to buff out my blush and make it really seamless, and again that's what I've done today. Just for kind of information, I'm using some products in here, and I'll talk you through what I'm using today. But I've also used a cream kind of blush and bronzer highlighter combination underneath, and then I can kind of just cover it a little bit, not cover it, but I blend it out with my foundation when I apply it. I kind of don't apply foundation in this area. I just kind of blend out with whatever I have left on my sponge, and then I go in with this palette afterwards. So Dim Light is one that I'm used, and I had a loose goal, so not like a proper goal, but I had a loose goal in the past month to reach for this one minimum 20 times, and I'm happy to say that I've done so. I've used this one 22 times, which is a really high amount. And again, I definitely can see a difference in the pan. It's definitely flattened out quite a bit. There is still a decent amount of product left in this pan, so it's going to take a little bit more work to finish up, of course, but I'm happy where this one stands today. Then the next shade is also a finishing powder, and that's the shade Diffuse Light. Again, like I said, I haven't focused on this one at all, so 0 uses there, which is absolutely fine. I'm kind of holding off on this one until I'm going to start using the first blush again. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but the one straight below it, I kind of use those two together again to kind of mix, because the blush in the middle there is a little bit more pigmented, so I like having this kind of shade to, again, just kind of buff it out and blend it to make it a bit more seamless. So I'm kind of waiting on that shade for now. Then we have the shade Iridescent Strobe Light, which is the highlighter in the palette. And with this one, I have a goal of using it minimum 10 times every single month. And I told you last month that if I ever have if I haven't completed my goal, those previous uses also roll over. So last month I used it 5 times, which meant that I have 5 uses rolling over. So this month I had a usage goal of 15 on this product. And I'm happy to say that I was able to do that. I actually used this shade 16 times, so even one more than I had to, which I'm really, really happy with. And this is definitely a shade I'm going to continue trying to use as much as possible, because again, it is my most, like my least used shade, I guess, my most untouched shade in this palette. So it's definitely going to take a lot more work to get through this one. But yeah, I'm going to continue doing like minimum 10 uses on this one moving forward, and hopefully doing that I should be able to get this one out before the end of the year. So yes, that is the top row, and yeah, again, I'm really, really happy with where those 3 shades stand today. And again, as you can see, this one is like my most domed product, but it definitely is way flatter than it was last month, if you remember that update. So moving on to the second row, we're going to start off with the bronzer, and the bronzer is called Eternal Bronze Light. So with this one, I had, again, a loose gold. It wasn't like a set gold or anything, but I was aiming to reach for it 10 times. And with this one, I wasn't able to get there. I only used this shade 6 times, which I'm fine with. I'm planning a different bronzer, which I'm trying to finish. And I also have a cream bronzer that I'm using quite a lot right now. I'm using the Milk Makeup bronzer, like the baked bronzer, bronzing stick, whatever it's called. I'm using that one quite a bit. That's also the one that I'm using today as like kind of like the cream bronzer. Like I said, I do that combination on my cheeks. I use actually a lipstick as a cream blush. I use a little dab of the Milk Makeup stick right here, and then like my cream highlighter from my Rolling Parade pan. And then I can just buff all of that in, and that is the base for my cheek products. So I don't need as much bronzer right now, and yeah, I'm just panning, like I said, a full bronzer to completion, and I also have another powder bronzer in my Product 10 Uses, which is the one I'm using today. So I kind of have to spread myself a little bit thinner when it comes to bronzers, but I'm fine with that because this product is relatively used now, and I'm not worried about finishing it before the end of the year anyway, because I reckon that if I use focus on it, it would be done probably within like a couple months of proper use. So since we still have 5 months left of the year, I think this one should be absolutely fine. Then moving on to the center shade on the bottom row, I did say that I haven't really touched this one, and that is not 100% true. I thought I hadn't touched it, but I actually reached for the shade once. So that is the shade Iridescent Rose, and that is again the first blush in the palette. It's a beautiful kind of, I don't know, it's like a rosier kind of mauve tone, but it still has a little bit of like warmth to it. So that is a shade that I'm going to focus on again on when we get into autumn, because it again is a little bit deeper. So I'm focusing on the brighter blush right now, but one use for now, which I'm pretty happy with. Then we have the final shade in the palette, which is called Sublime Flush. And this again was one that I wanted to focus on. I had a loose goal again, not like again set goal, but I wanted to reach for it ideally 20 times, and I have actually way surpassed that. I'm really, really happy because I was able to reach for that blush 25 times in the past month. And again, that is this right here. And I don't know if you can tell, but this one is getting very, very flat. I am going to continue focusing on this one next month. I'm going to talk about my goals in a second, but I think I might be able to hit pan on this blush next month, considering how flat it is, especially in like this down corner right here is quite flat. So I'm expecting to pan on that one, hopefully in the next month. But again, I'm going to talk about my goals in a second. So that is where this palette stands today. I'm really, really happy with all my uses. This is probably one of my best months in a while when it comes to uses, and you're going to be able to see that as well in the weights. I'm going to, of course, talk you through the weights in a second. But yeah, I'm really happy. I surpassed all my goals. The only one that I did not quite hit my goal on is that bronzer, because I did ideally want to reach for that about 10 times, but I only got to 6, which again is fine. Again, it was like a loose goal. It wasn't like a 100% set goal anyway. So those are again my uses. I'm going to talk you through the weight next before I move into my goals for next month. So I'm going to do a little bit of a quick recap. At the beginning of the year, this palette weighed 138.32 grams, and the palette has an advertised weight of 8.4 grams, which means that I have to use 0.70 grams per month to be on track. That's what I say every single month. That's just like the baseline that I'm aiming for. So 0.70 grams. I'm going to sum up Q1 and Q2 because I don't think there's any point talking about every single month. But in Q1, I was able to reach for 2.33 grams, and the goal at that point was 2.1 grams. So I was slightly ahead of schedule, which I was happy to see. Then looking at my Q2 uses, again, my goal was 2.1 grams because that's what I need to hit every single month. Is 3 times 0.70, so 2.1 grams. And in Q2, I was able to reach for 2.14 grams. So just very slightly higher than that goal, 0.04 grams over. Again, so basically on track. And that also meant that in total, at the last update, because Q2 finished up last update, I had reached for 4.47 grams of this palette, and the goal at that point was 4.2, so I was 0.27 grams ahead of schedule. And at that point, last month, the palette weighed 133.85 grams, so that was my point in June. And today, the palette weighs 132.85 grams, which means that I have reached for this exactly 1 gram of usage, which is really, really satisfying. I weighed it this morning and it was so satisfying that it was exactly on the milligram and 1 even gram. So very, very happy to see. And again, that means that I have now used a total of 5.47 grams of the palette. So that is what the palette stands today. And again, this palette has an advertised weight of 8.4 grams. So considering I use up 5.47 grams, that means that I have about 3 grams left in this palette, just shy. It's 2.93 grams, I believe. That's how much I have left in this palette. And looking at each individual pan, they have 1.4 grams in them. That's how much is advertised in each of these pans. So just over 3 grams, or sorry, just under 3 grams is just over 2 pounds of these left. So 2 pounds of this would be 2.8 grams, and again 2.93 grams, so 0.13 grams over. So it is about 2 of these plus, I don't know, like a little bit more. So I don't know if that's accurate. I feel like there is more product than that left in here, but I also know a lot of times products have more products than advertised, and it's just kind of well known, I believe, because legal reasons, I guess, because if it was less, then people could sue them. I don't know the details, but I've just known that overall I feel like a lot of palettes have way more product than advertised. And this palette was a little bit used before the start of the year, but it wasn't like that well used, so it was pretty much untouched. I'm going to count this almost an untouched palette, even though it wasn't. So it's going to be interesting to see how much is actually in here. But I'm really, really hopeful, because even though there is still like a lot of product, and I only really have pan on one of the pans, which is this shade here, I know that a lot of these are very, very flat, like especially the bottom row right here is very flat. Like this bronzer is super flat, this blush is super flat, and even though I'm not using this blush right now, I'm very, very close to pan up here, and again it's super flat. So these 3 are very flat. These 2 on the sides are the tallest. So again, the highlighter is definitely the one with the most product, and then this setting powder, or like this finishing powder, is also a little bit more domed, but again, not too much. So let's move on to my goals for next month. Let me talk you through what I think I can do with this palette. So I am going to try to hit pan on that blush. I'm not going to put in like a loose goal or anything. My goal will just be to try to hit pan on this one and use it as much as possible. Considering how much it's gone down in the past month, I do think I can do it, but we're just going to have to see. So I'm going to try to pan on that shade, which again is called Sublime Flush. That's going to be goal number 1. Apart from that, of course, I'm going to continue trying to reach for this highlighter minimum 10 times. If I can reach for it more, that would be amazing, but 10 uses for that highlighter, sorry. So that's 2 goals. Should I put a 3rd goal in? I'm going to put in this time a harsh goal. Like I definitely want to do it, to reach for this powder right here 20 times, because I do want to get as much use out of this one now when it's summertime and I'm a little bit deeper, because I know that in the winter this shade is a little bit too deep for me. And yes, I can use it like to blend out my bronzer, things like that if I need to, but I'm going to try to get as much use out of it this month as I can. So 20 uses on this one. I'm going to try to pan on this blush, and then 10 uses minimum on that highlighter. And those would be my goals. Again, with the bronzer and the rest of the palette, I can reach for it whenever I want. Again, I'm not too worried about finishing that bronzer, and then these 2 shades in the middle, I'm trying to save for autumn. So that is going to be my update for my Pan Face palette today. I really, really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're doing a Pan Face palette yourself, let me know how you're doing down below. I would love to hear from you. But other than that, I hope you have an amazing day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye, guys.